Welcome to this session where ZEE5, the largest Indian entertainment destination in association with ET BrandEquity, presents ZEE5 Intelligence Monitor, a knowledge series that takes a deep dive into consumer behavior toward products and services across diverse categories. When the pandemic forced us towards staying indoors, smartphones became our window to the world, helping us to stay connected. Today, an average Indian consumer spends around 4.8 hours a day on the mobile handsets, and be it shopping, entertainment, education, investments, trading, and many other things. ZEE5 decided to deep dive into this ever-evolving consumer behavior to bring actionable business insights for its advertisers on where the consumers are actually interacting with their smartphones. Today in this fourth episode, we will focus on this smartphone category and why we're doing this, because as per reports, India is one of the biggest handset markets in the world and second only to China. It is growing at a CAGR of 14.2% and is expected to touch the rupees 2 trillion mark. As per reports, there are over 748 million smartphone users in India currently, and over 160 million units shipped in the country. These numbers are as per 2021. Although initially the market subsided due to the pandemic, it has bounced back and has been growing rapidly, owing to the increased demand from the audiences across all price points. In this session today, I'm joined by industry stalwarts who will unveil the market insights and will take a look at how the category is growing, how the purchase intentions are being created among consumers, and the journey of smartphone users across metro and non-metro regions, online versus offline purchase, and many other business aspects. It's my great honor to introduce my panel today. In no particular order, Mr. Muralikrishnan, Chief Operating Officer, Xiaomi India. Welcome, Murli.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
My next panelist, Mr. Shivam Ranjan, Head of Marketing at Motorola. Welcome, Shivam.
Thank you. Thank you, Satrajit.
We also have Mr. Rajiv Bakshi, Chief Operations Officer, Revenue at ZEE5. Welcome, Rajiv.
Hello, Satrajit. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. So first of all, I would like to thank all our panelists today, and I'll like to start this conversation with Rajiv here. So the first question, the opening remark from Rajiv, and we would like to hear your thoughts behind the purpose of releasing ZEE5 Intelligence Monitor. And what is ZEE5 trying to create and achieve with this consumer, category-led consumer insights, and especially looking at the smartphone market?
Right. So I'll start by saying, sometime back, maybe a few years back, we started saying data is a new fuel. And obviously now, even that has got competition. Lots of other elements have become the new fuel. But keeping that note of data being the new fuel for growth, especially for marketers, we felt that ZEE5, which is actually one of the largest entertainment destinations in India, and it's got audiences cut across India and across geographies, across various cohorts. And we get wealth of data in that sense of understanding how audiences are actually consuming content and otherwise observing behavior of purchase and their predisposition, how they're changing, especially in events like pandemic. We felt that we have a fair bit of knowledge to share with our fellow clients. Now, obviously, our core exercise is to kind of entertain audiences. Alongside, we also believe that we have a responsibility to share intelligence with our clients who have invested their dollars with us. And if you can add a complementary value to already existing knowledge base that they have of their audience and of their consumers, it will be a value addition. With that note in mind, we felt let's try to discover what is really happening in India across various product categories. Now, of course, smartphone, I think, and smartphone and OTT, which is what we are, is the most symbiotic relationship, right? Is the closest relationship, very interdependent relationship. Obviously, we are kind of, we taken kind of the first advantage of smartphones, and I'm sure as time has come, we're seeing even smartphones are taking advantage of OTT platforms. So it's kind of a symbiotic relationship. And it changes after every few years, whose dependency changes and reverses. And we felt that if we can get ahead and present, because we have a fair bit of representation of India, our audiences sit, like I said, in big metros, in small cities, and across villages. And we have an inherent advantage that we can consume research quite fast and actually bring out very astute finding, which otherwise could be very difficult to kind of do in otherwise a pandemic world or a closed network that we have today. Also, we could do customized research for each product category, right? We've done a few commission research already on emerging sector like edtech. We've done a very detailed study on gaming industry. We've done something on e-commerce. We also did a chapter on cryptocurrency, just to understand where the mood of the nation today is. How is the audience thinking about spending its time, money, resources? What are the aspirations today? How the aspiration for their family, the children changing, which we studied in the tech sector. In smartphone, we felt that let's try to understand. And of course, smartphone is a category that all of us use so extensively. So we all try to believe that we know everything. That is a hazardous risk that we all run by because we are such a high consumer. We believe that we understand this category. Almost every one of us understands the smartphone category quite well because of being such an active user. But I'm quite sure the truth is a little far, especially if you're trying to see what are the imminent trends, not today, but yesterday, but tomorrow's. I think these studies that ZEE5 intelligence monitor is going to release is going to be very of great value. We believe it's going to be substantial value and it's going to add and complement existing knowledge which already exists with Shivam's team and Murali's team. So that's the note on which we have come out with this particular report.
Thanks, Rajiv. Thanks for your opening remarks. And interestingly, you mentioned about the correlation between OTT and smartphone, because somewhere down the line we keep on hearing this. Either of these category helped each other to grow during the lockdown. This brings me to my question to Murali. And since we are speaking about category growth and especially during the lockdown, there is a pertinent point that was mentioned in the ZEE5 Intelligence Smartphone Edition report, which says that 70% of the audience agree that the usage of mobile phones has increased since the lockdown. So I would really like to come to Murali here and want to know about your experience regarding this entire scenario. Did you guys in Xiaomi, did you really see that lockdown really affected in increasing the usage of smartphones from light to moderate and to moderate to heavy users? And what do you think are the key drivers that really increase the phone usage among consumers?
Sure. Thank you. Thanks, Satrajit. Let's wind the clock back and talk about history. And you can broadly chart various phases in the evolution of usage of the internet and smartphones, not just in India, but across the globe. First, it started with, let's just say, content, right? There were search engines and there were websites, and you use the internet and devices like the smartphones to access that information. And then it evolved into some degree of communication with email and SMS and so on and so forth. Like if you go back into, let's say, the mid-2000s, even WhatsApp wasn't so big at that point of time. So people were largely relying on modes of communication like email, and then social networking, community building, MySpace initially, and then Facebook, etc. That unleashed a big evolution in the way it's used, especially by smartphones. And then commerce became the wrong of, and everybody started devices to shop. So each one of this is a C, right? So there is content, there is communication, there is community, there is commerce. Now I would say there is that big C which covers them all, because it's a catch-all use case now. Today, in no particular order again, you use your smartphones to work from home, to learn from home, to communicate, to get content, to order food, to do banking, to shop for stuff, to do investing and buy stocks and maybe even crypto, to going and posting reels on Instagram, to watching video and content in OTT, to gaming. I mean, you do everything on your smartphone today, right? It's become that single catch-all device, which in some ways actually rules your life, right? Your life is incomplete without your phone. And when, let's say, your phone is at 10% charge, you start feeling anxiety. And I'm not speaking for myself, I'm speaking for most people. That's how important the phone has become. Has the pandemic accelerated some of that? Of course it has. right? Your inability to go outside and do stuff that you typically used to do, being in terms of purchasing stuff and so on, a whole lot of that has moved online, right? All your banking and payment transactions, a majority of those have moved online, courtesy killer applications like the UPI. And this is great, right? We live in such wonderful times that a small device, which let's say a 6.5-inch screen, can power your life and transform it in ways that we never imagined 10 years ago, right? It's an entertainment device, it's a gaming device, it's a communication device, it's an all-in-one device. And it is for these very strong reasons that the usage of these smartphones have definitely increased over the years, and the pandemic has only accelerated it. Should be viewed in the larger context of the impact that technology is having on our lives, right? Smartphone is just one device. When you layer on the magical impact of stuff like artificial intelligence, IoT devices, and multiply that with the power of 5G, the future holds unimaginable possibilities that will transform our lives again. And honestly, companies like Xiaomi, we are more excited about playing a key role in creating that future.
Great. Thanks, Murali, for your, you beautifully mentioned about the key drivers that really, influence this growth. I would like to come to Rajiv here, and Rajiv, is there any data set available on out of all these, do's that Murali really mentioned about that, consumers are used to on the smartphone? How much of that is about consumption on OTT, and how are they? So, as you mentioned initially, right, both these categories are interrelated and help each other grow. If you can share some more insights on that.
Of course, Murali was quite clear as to how the dependency on smartphone has increased. To me, I think is the most fascinating love affair going on, right? I mean, everyone's first love actually is their mobile phone now, and this is the only thing no husband or wife is envious of, because they all got their own kind of side affairs going on. So with the mobile phone, I mean. So I think, to my mind, the dependency and love for mobile phone is increasing tremendously. One big factor why it's gone up, and of course, people are experiencing different emotion, not just necessarily the services they're using, is because of OTT's content. See, we are all pack of emotions, human beings, and nothing brings out emotions better than fiction drama shows. And OTT basically is a kind of the platform where you can get all your fix of drama and emotions. I know during pandemic, of course, people consume a lot of content sitting at home, but otherwise now that is markets open and everyone's traveling and people are in metros or cars or cabs and air flights, I don't see a single person who's not consuming content. I take about 3 to 4 flights a week, and I took that in the last 2 years. I have never seen anyone not watching content. Of course, besides the social media interaction and checking emails and other stuff, I don't know a single person on a flight or in a cab or in a metro who's not consuming content, whether it's a download or a streaming, straight live streaming. But I see everyone almost across age, and that's a fascinating part of OTT. It doesn't matter what gender, age, background you are, everyone is consuming content. It could be your neighbor, it could be your driver, it could be your worker, it could be you, it could be your parents. Everyone today is hooked on smartphone. And I think we would like to take a little credit for that, because I think we are playing the kind of the lead role right now. We've become the kind of, maybe it's a second innings of smartphone, but we're trying to do the opening. And I think content is doing a fairly good job at the opening.
Thanks, Rajiv. I would really like to come to Shivam here. Shivam, sorry to keep you waiting for such a long time, but I believe me, I have reserved the best for you, right? So so first of all, I want to know from your point of view, what are the what do you think are the key drivers to this growth? The point why we are discussing about the smartphone industry today. And secondly, to do all these things, right? Whatever Murali and Rajiv mentioned. So is it imperative that you have to have a 30K plus phone? Like, what is the price point that really, entices people to go for, all these things that can be doable on a smartphone, right? Your insights on that.
Perfect. Thank you, Satrajit. I think you asked 2 questions, and I'd like to break it up and then try and answer. Sure. The first one is basically my comments on the insights of the growth. and where is it coming from, and what is leading to it, and maybe what's the future in it, right? So I'll try and comment on that a little bit. And then you asked me about the price point and what's the motivation to go for higher price points. So maybe I'll talk about that second.
Sure, that works.
Talking about the first point, see, I think Murali and Rajiv have already spoken about it. I think there are a lot of factors that have driven the growth of smartphone business, and I think as you would be seeing, there was a dip during the pandemic year, and after that, the smartphone shipments have continued to increase, right? So the market is growing. The market is growing because consumers are spending more time. I mean, at least the average time that the consumers spend on a smartphone nowadays is about 5 hours, right? If not more, that's the average, right? So you'll have people spending more time. Like Rajiv mentioned, I think everybody is consuming content. Necessarily may not be OTT content, but you'll find them consuming some sort of the content, whether it is social media, or is it news, or is it emails, anything of that sort. I think everybody wants to consume that content. Even communication, right? I think communication is also adding to spending a lot of time on your smartphones, because communication no longer in the form of making phone calls, right? I mean, I'm talking about communication which is just about messaging. I think messaging is massive, and even beyond the traditional social media networks, people are using WhatsApp, etc., to communicate a lot, and that takes a lot of time as well. And then, of course, the fact that consumers have reduced, attention spans, right? So they need, I mean, I think the change in behavior that has happened is also about consumers wanting to consume different kinds of content within a very short period of time across platforms. So I think the smartphone is the only device that allows you to do that, whether you want to switch between news to social media to OTT content to video. And that's the flexibility that the smartphone provides. And of course, like Rajiv mentioned, it's the closest thing you have these days, right? I mean, closest to having an affair, right? So yeah, I agree, and I think there are a lot of drivers which are driving this. It's about consumer behavior, the way the consumer behavior has evolved, the way people are consuming content nowadays. COVID has definitely helped accelerate the entire process by reducing other mediums, the impact of other mediums there. But I think this is something that is there to stay. It's not something that's going to go away in a jiffy. And I think it's a change in behavior that's going to stay. And we continue to see people spending more and more time on smartphones. And hence it becomes extremely important for us as manufacturers of smartphones to understand these trends. In fact, to project future trends that might be coming in, to see what consumers could move towards, and hence design for that, or hence support that, right? So for example, according to me, one of the biggest changes that we'll see, I mean, while I don't have a crystal ball and I can't tell you the future of the smartphone industry, and I think nobody can, right? I mean, I think Murali will agree, the pace at which this industry changes, I mean, it's very difficult to predict anything beyond, say, 6 months to 1 year, maybe, but beyond that, it's all speculation to quite an extent, right? So, but yes, I mean, to our best guesses, I think my biggest take in terms of the thing that is going to change the industry significantly is 5G. 5G will bring in connectivity and use cases for consumers that will not just enhance the existing use cases, which is content consumption, etc., of course, at faster speeds, but also multiple connections, simultaneous live content consumption cases because of low latency and high, support for higher people. And then use cases like in health, in transportation, in medical. So there are a lot of use cases that will come in. Which will be supported by 5G, and the interplay of connected devices. I think that's something. So while smartphone will continue to be your primary device, right? I mean, that's not going to change. For consumers, the smartphone will remain their primary device and their biggest love affair, so to say. But they have to operate everything else around them, and 5G will give that capability with the lowest latency that it provides to allow them to start connecting with different devices, and it'll bring a whole lot of new use cases. So in terms of change that will come from it, right? So as manufacturers of smartphones, we will see us evolving to meet those requirements. For example, content consumption will continue to become more important. Hence, display quality, display features will continue to become more important for us to ensure that we continue to give an immersive experience to the consumers. Interconnected devices become more important. Hence, it is important for us to give services that allow or facilitate that. For example, at Motorola, we have a service called Ready For, which allows you to simultaneously connect your device to a television, to a laptop, wirelessly, to any display monitor and use the power of your smartphone to actually drive it, right? To drive content on it, to drive gaming on it, to do productivity applications on it. So these kind of innovations will come into play. So that was my answer to your first question, and I know I've been a little long, I guess. So so moving on to your second answer to your second question, I think you asked me about price point.
Price point, yeah.
See, I think India by far, even now, if you ask me, I mean, frankly, the market is still largely a low ASP market, right? I mean, 90% of the market, or even more actually, is below that price point, right? So 30K and above, in various various data sources, would not be more than 8-9% in my view, right? And hence, you know, this chunk is something that is important, and it's growing, and as you can see, a lot of players are entering this category also. So let's try to understand what's the rationale behind it. Is it that the consumers are changing, or the industry is changing, or what is happening? Why are people moving towards slightly more expensive devices? I think, I mean, taking a step back, and maybe instead of just talking about the industry and smartphones, if I just look at the Indian economy, right, the Indian middle class is the fastest growing middle class in the world, right? We're adding people to the middle class segment in India at a very rapid pace. So as of now, we have about 55% middle class. And I mean, by 2025, it will be 55%. And the population will effectively be double of the entire US population, right? So we will have the largest middle class population. And in India, if you see, the biggest spending, 60% of the GDP is by private spending, right? Private spending forms 60% of the GDP. This is actually the highest number across all top economies. So even if you compare with China, while if you compare in absolute size, their middle class is slightly higher than us. But if you look at the contribution of the private spending to their GDP, that's lower. So effectively, the combined with the growth in middle class in India and the contribution to the private spending, this is the reason why you are seeing people starting to spend more. So basically the funnel, the typical pyramid that we used to have, is actually changing. It's becoming thin here. It's becoming a little thin here. It's becoming a little fat so it's got a belly now. So that's how it is changing, and I think that's one of the reasons why you're seeing the trends where people are moving towards slightly higher ASP smartphones, and I think that's a trend which is in the early stages right now, and that will continue to evolve over the next few years, because I see this trend growing and continuing till 2025, and you will see people looking at those smartphones. But considering that it's such a large market, that percentage moving from 8% to say even 20% will be something that will take time. But India being such a large market, right? Today 160 million. By 2025, who knows, 200 million plus some number, even 20% of that is going to be massive for us, right? So immense opportunity there. And I think as technologies grow, as use cases grow, and as aspirations grow, as the middle class grows for the economy, this segment will continue to increase as well.
Thanks, Shivam. One thing that you really mentioned, and that was quite true, is that this category itself is a very dynamic one, and 6 months is the best time that you can decide about the trends. One more thing that and I would connect this question to my next question to Murli, right? Is about brand loyalty. We have seen people switch phones, right? Maybe 6 months might be a little bit early, but 6 to 8 months, say, a year's time, they switch brands, they switch phones, they switch platforms. Standing on this, there is a data point from the ZEE5 report that shows that 1 in 3 users prefer to upgrade their phone at least within a year, right? And this age group is mostly between 18 to 24 years that has higher tendency to upgrade their phones more frequently. So, my question to Murali is basically, what's your, feedback and assessment of this finding, and how do you see this really affecting the brand, or does it, so what are the opportunities that a brand can have in this scenario?
Firstly, yes, on the upgrade cycles, over a period of time, has the amount of time for which a user has a particular smartphone, has that shrunk? Yes, it has. And I'll cover some of the reasons behind it. However, the fact to underline all of this is that the Indian consumer is what I would call a utilitarian, value-focused consumer, right? India's not a cheap market, right? It is a market where people are super smart and they chase value, and just the sheer amount of information on not just smartphones, but pretty much every product category that's available online makes people extremely smart consumers, right? So Indians are even more utilitarian, value-focused consumers today. As opposed to a base entry-level processor, a mid-range or a higher processor ensures that they can multitask well. Instead of a 2 GB, 3 GB RAM, 4 GB, 6 GB RAM makes their work more effective. Like you're shuffling between multiple apps. I'm watching a video maybe on the ZEE5 OTT app, and I'm switching to WhatsApp, and then I'm going to Instagram, and then I'm coming here, etc., etc. So multitasking is becoming a big use case. People realize the value of a good screen, especially to watch content, right? A nice large 6.5, 6.7 inch screen with AMOLED display with a good high refresh rate gives me a totally immersive experience. Of course, it's got like nice multimedia dual speakers and so on and so forth. So on every aspect, given the amount of information available, be it for big ticket use cases like content consumption, gaming, and so on, people have realized that if I can stretch my budget, I get a significantly better all-round experience. And the beauty of this is affordability schemes through various finance companies and credit cards has further accelerated this phenomenon as compared to maybe 5, 7, 8 years ago, right? Today, I can get a really good quality smartphone for not more than 3,000 rupees a month, and I can pay the rest over 6, 9, 12-month EMIs. And all of this has changed people's perspective, saying the smartphone is such an important part of my life. I need it to be full featured. I'm willing to stretch my wallet to get something really worthwhile, and it's available in easy to afford installments. This is what's causing a shift in price points. 3 years ago, the entry-level consumer used to be very satisfied with an 8,000 rupee phone. But today they realize that unless I get a good mid-ranger, maybe 13, 14, 15,000 rupee phone, my experience after some time will be incomplete. It's not that the phone won't work, but it's not that wholesome experience that I desire, right? Similarly, what used to be the 15 to 20,000 price segment has now become the 20,000 plus price segment. And you ask this question on 30,000, the 30,000 plus price bracket is a whole different ballgame, right? There you have 3 different kinds of consumers. The first consumer is one that I would call who desires the all-in-one device. Because ये device में मुझे सब कुछ चाहिए. I need a great processor, great display, great camera, great battery, great everything, right? Now, so that's one kind of consumer. The other kind of consumer is like gaming freak. I need a super processor, fantastic refresh rate, excellent touch response. Because I need to game, I need to get that kill in my game when I need it the most. And then there are those who desire a smartphone as a lifestyle statement, right? It is the imperative for us smartphone brands to ensure that we have offerings to cater to each one of those segments. And because smartphone brands like us are getting a lot more data through consumer insights, we are also able to tailor offerings across various price points, thus providing a very nice seamless upgrade path to consumers. Of course, we'd like to retain them in this entire brand family, right? So honestly, I'll disagree a bit with the original question, which is people switch brands. People switch brands only if they're unhappy with a specific offering. However, if your experience with the brand is complete, you get a great product, it's reliable, it's durable, and it meets all your requirements, and it's at a great price point, why would you want to switch, right? Because as long as the brand keeps its upgrade cycle frequent, to ensure that you're able to retain people within the family. But yes, upgrade is more led by my own requirements as well as what I see outside, because I'm just technology positive. Yaar, mere dost ye la rahe hain, wo la rahe hain, and I'm like, boss, I need that smartphone. Right? Some of that is also what you see around you. But definitely upgrade cycles are shortening. But let's not forget the fact that the Indian consumer is perhaps amongst the smartest anywhere in the world. Utilitarian, value focused at all points of time. Because nobody takes the Indian consumer for a ride. And that's something that we all should be together proud of. And thankfully, Indian brands are taking care of that specific audience very well.
Yeah, you rightly mentioned, Indian consumers are being heard, and it's great that brands are actually listening to them. That's why I think the uniformity in the brand still stays. I mean, there are brand loyal consumers that I have seen, and I agree with Murli. Upgrade doesn't necessarily mean a change in the brand. This makes me, move to my next question, and I would really want to connect it to my original question and come to Rajiv here, right? Rajiv, we have heard both Murli and Shivam talk about how this smartphone industry is growing and what are the factors that are driving the growth in the industry. So let's now speak about advertising by this industry itself, right? And how do we see the new age platforms, the OTT players, right? And especially ZEE5, in consideration. How do you see, ZEE5 helping in the advertising requirements of, both our friends in the panel here?
Sure. So it takes me back to the question you asked both Shivan and Murli, and I think they alluded to it.
Right.
The one fundamental phenomena, and again, the research tells us, and it's extensive research across India, is the phenomena of upgrade. Now, this, I think, upgrade, and we're seeing this across categories, not just mobile phone, but even in auto. I think upgrade is, and in education, actually, we saw upskill. So getting more than what you've been getting so far, I think is a conscious trend. And I agree with Murli when he says that Indian consumer is certainly a value consumer. But at the same time, I think what's happened and research is telling, and it may be music to both my co-panelists, is that consumers today want to purchase and upgrade their mobile phone every 6 to 9 months. I do not know how far it was earlier, but I'm quite sure it's reduced to a dramatic point of 6 months now. We specifically ask our audience, and we have 100 million MAU across India. So it's a fair extrapolation of what India is feeling as to their purchase cycle, and they're all wishing to purchase a new phone in 6 months. And that's, I think we take again, because content is so essential to their life as camera was, I think, as a phenomenon a few years back, that if they don't get the experience, immersive, as I use the word from Murli, if they don't get an immersive experience of watching content, of downloading content, of storage in their mobile phone, I think it gives them great reason to upgrade. Now, it's not necessary that obviously they will switch brands, but obviously it's something that I think Indian by nature are becoming much more exploratory in nature. Earlier they had, and just like their value conscious consumer, I think they were the most spoiled consumer as well. The amount of choices that we offer to Indian consumer across categories, I doubt very few economies around the world offer that. So my first service to kind of advertisers or marketers is basically to tell them essentially the mood of, and as a ZEE5 audience, what are they thinking, what are they wishing to do, how they're trying to upgrade, what are they looking for, what price point they operate at. 30% of my audience actually sits above 30,000 price point. It's a very affluent audience profile. They all wish to consume, and I know the average is about 5 hours, and that's what we got. 4.8 hours is what, basically, to be very precise, is the average time spent of audiences on ZEE5, 4.8 hours on an average. We saw a bit of contrast, and again, what we can give to them is value in terms of intelligence is about the older lot, which is about 35 to 44. Is certainly, and I guess it got to do with the affordability, they're slightly more brand conscious. But the younger lot are very feature conscious. I think that's what I think the contrast between audiences is appearing. And we know the younger lot obviously also have a longer life with the phone. And again, it's got to do with their affordability and which price bracket in terms of their economic cycle is, right? People above 35 perhaps have much more disposable income today and are wishing to kind of therefore go for a higher purchase point phone. But by itself, by advertising on ZEE5 platform, because we have a fairly robust AWOT platform, and it's a very data-rich platform. So you can target any cohort, you can use any KPI that you may have for your brand, your product price point, and you can target and get a very, very smart outcome in terms of ROI, very well measurable. we run a very, very large television business. It still is very dominant. But alongside, we have also developed the OTT business, which allows you to get what we get, the friendliness of TV content in terms of affinity and viewership, and alongside the data, which is addressable data points that typically every marketer today wants. And certainly ROI, which is much more measurable. And also in terms of, you can calibrate that, right, during an ongoing campaign. Whatever perhaps sometimes TV can't offer, I think ZEE5 is able to kind of round that off as an incremental solution to clients.
Right. Thanks, Rajiv. So I'll move on to Shivam here. Shivam, as a marketing leader, right? How do you see OTT platforms really helping you, and especially the likes of ZEE5 really helping you in your quest to reach the desired audience and desired consumers?
No, I mean, I think the writing is there on the wall. I think, like Rajiv mentioned, Murali mentioned, all of us mentioned, content is key right now, and specifically video content, right? So you're seeing the rise of video content. Video is becoming actually the most preferred medium if you want to drive top funnel awareness, right? So on digital also. And there was a time when statics and carousels and stuff used to work better. But right now, according to me, the best medium to drive top funnel, if you want to drive searches for the product, etc., it is video. And you'll have to look at platforms where people are spending time watching videos, right? So there are only so OTT definitely becomes the primary channel for me to drive top funnel awareness. And if you look at our industry, right, we are all launching products at a rapid pace, right? I mean, we launch products in different price segments. Both Murali's organization and my organization, we play in multiple price categories, right? And we're launching products across different price segments at very rapid frequencies. For every product, we have to create massive reach and awareness within a very short period of time, because we do so many campaigns. Typically, we have a 2-3 week period before to create that kind of massive awareness with a whole lot of consumers, and to be top of their mind and then drive consideration, etc., before we start selling the product. So I think it's extremely important. OTT becomes really, really important for us to create that amplified reach and frequency. OTT is also offering multiple options, right? So while there are options of direct buys, there's also DV360 options. You can do targeting in different ways, right? So I think lots of options available for us to target which segment where, and OTT becomes critical part of our media strategy to drive the top funnel for every campaign. So no two ways about it. And I think this is the truth today. And this should continue at least for the next couple of years is what I feel.
Great. Thanks, Shivam. Murali, your take. Where do you see, OTT featuring in the entire media mix as a business leader and the business owner, as far as your brand's quest to, reach out to their, consumers is concerned?
One very simple fact: advertising dollars go where the eyeballs are, right? Marketing 101. And if as Rajiv mentioned, close to 5 hours in a day are spent on content consumption, watching videos, watching OTT shows and web series and so on and so forth, it is but natural that the advertising dollars flock to that medium. Now, the question for the OTT providers and for brands like us is, how do you leverage some of the unique nature of this medium to make your advertising dollars more impactful? Basics, of course, will say, hey, there are people, you can drive top-of-line awareness and hence allocate X percentage of your budget to this medium. I think that anybody can do. But it's important for us to maybe collaborate and have open-ended conversations to say, look, how do I leverage the unique nature of this medium to make it more impactful? For example, what are the opportunities of merging content and advertising, right? Maybe create mini shows, 5-minuters, 10-minuters on popular OTT platforms like ZEE5, which can showcase the virtues of a brand, a product, use case, etc., right? And if that's a series and it's engaging and hooking, maybe there is an opportunity there to collaborate. The other dimension to think about this is just purely in terms of leveraging data. Consumer segmentation, figuring out what is the right point of time during the course of the day to pitch a specific message to the consumer, right? For example, and I'm just making this up as we speak, if somebody is watching a show while in a cab heading out for a Friday night drink with friends, right? Is there an opportunity to showcase maybe the camera feature in a phone? Because say that's one use case where I'll end up taking a lot of pictures, right? And I'm just making this up, but maybe the opportunity is here. The marketing brains can think a lot more about. So that's the second dimension. The third dimension I will think of is how do, and given the digital first nature of this medium, right? You're always viewing it in a let's say a smartphone, a tablet, etc., where you can click. Even smart TVs, maybe you can click, right? How do you leverage that to make content on the show shoppable, right? If there is a web series in which somebody has a phone, right? How do you have an overlay which says you can click here to get more information about the phone, buy the phone, add it to cart, add it to your wish list, etc., right? Opens up newer opportunities. I'll sum up by saying there is of course a lot of time spent, but it's important for brands and content providers and OTT platforms to collaborate and figure with this new medium, what are the new marketing solutions that can get innovated upon to take advantage of what this new medium presents to us, right? Because what worked on the web is not going to work here. We have to innovate. I think that's my big takeaway in terms of opportunities.
Sure. Thanks, Murali. So I think, content that has led to commerce has been, one of the biggest success models for any business here, especially in the platforms business. And, the same is, holds true for OTT as well here as an advertising platform. And so far as, the smartphone industry is concerned, pandemic or no pandemic, the growth rate is just going to be, stay true to the nature of the industry, the nature of the smartphones. And, since all of our panelists agreed that, the upgrade cycles are really becoming fast, and, this is as fast paced as the phones are changing, as fast paced as the, industry is changing. On that note, I think we have, tried to scratch the surface of understanding what the consumer feels and what the consumer thinks about the, or reacts to a smartphone he or she is using. It's a dynamic industry, and there are a lot of new anecdotes that are waiting to be discovered around the corner. Till we meet again, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thanks for this wonderful conversation.
Thanks, Murali.
Thank you so much.
Shivam. Thanks, Rajiv.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much for taking out time. And thank you for your candid answers. I mean, it really made an interesting conversation, actually.
No, absolutely. It was great. It was great to converse with you and all the other panelists. I think I met them for the first time on the show. Rajiv, Murali, pleasure connecting with both of you. It was fantastic. It was a pleasure to interact.